The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
This is News Talk.
Now you're welcome along. Off the Ball is coming at you, so needless to say, we'll be reflecting on events at the Aviva Stadium last night. Gavin Cooney of the 42, Vinnie Perth, both in studio, 9 to 10. We'll be talking some hurling 7:30. Michael Verney is with us. We have Kilkenny against Limerick in a league final. And again, rumours abound of a slight tangent coming your way between 8 and 9. 53106, the text number. We are at Off the Ball on Twitter. Richie McCormack with us. Good evening.
Howdy, Joe.
And Michael McCarthy here in studio. Hello.
I am here. How are you?
Mary gets the ball rolling. France put the ball in the net. Ireland didn't. That's what counts. And good night, everyone. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Absolutism from Mary, yeah.
Absolutism. Is that what that is?
Look, I mean, Frank Stapleton said it, didn't he? After Euro 88 in the car park as he was getting on the bus, and there was all these questions about all the chances that England had, and and do you think? And his answer was, "Well, we scored and they didn't." So maybe sometimes that's all it is at the end of the day, Joe. Yeah. I sort of think there's more to a football game than just what happens to be the score at the end of it. I don't have to be too existential to think that, do I?
I don't think so. Rich, Irish performance. Yes. Give us your overview to get the ball rolling. Although Mary, to be fair, has pretty much conclusively.
I don't know if I can follow.
The ball is rolling now.
Mary.
Yes.
The ball has been trapped and booted out of play.
The referee has picked up the ball and walked off the pitch.
But go get the ball and throw it back in and start rolling it again, please.
It's like Estonia, Scotland all over again. Very, very, very well managed and well coached and well realised on the pitch as well last night. From moment one, they were a team that had a brief from 1 to 11 and absolutely stuck to it, each and every one of them. Granted, there were flubs along the way, some minor, and Josh Cullen's one, a pretty major one. But you could see when players are being substituted in around 60, 65 minutes, how heavily they were breathing, how much they were putting into that game. And it was a lot. To be able to stand toe-to-toe with a two-time World Cup finalist and a team who boast one of the best players, if not the best player in the world right now, and deservedly match them in terms of play and probably undeservedly come away with a defeat is huge. And that should be, I think Seamus Coleman said it in his post-match interview with Tony last night, like that should be the benchmark going forward. And they need to, albeit with little tactical tweaks here and there, because you're not going to approach a Gibraltar game like that, or perhaps even a Greece game like that in the same manner. But in terms of application and in terms of effort and in terms of realising a manager's vision for what he wants to see from the first minute, that is the benchmark. And if they can take that and move that into June and take 6 points in Greece, it's not going to be as hot as 40 degrees as some might have said last night, and then at home to Gibraltar, like they've a decent chance, because that Netherlands squad are a rabble, and the infighting is moments away from them, because there's former pros pointing the finger at all sorts in that squad, experience and non-experience. So like the second place in that group is a very live possibility.
Ooh. Easy now, Tiger. It was a casual 3 points at Greece. I think they've lost one game in the last 2 or 3 years there. That was to Spain. I got that off Gavin Cooney, stole it off him. But it's not straightforward. The point is we have to build on the performance, or else it's kind of for naught. It's like you can lose games that you play well in, but if you're not always playing well, then you're not going to get the results. So I think that's. I thought that we were great at times, And actually, Joe, I was thinking you were there obviously, and sometimes you get a sense of these things at a match more so than you do watch on TV. But that's the biggest gap in talent and quality I can remember for a team coming to Lansdowne Road in my time. And if you look at the first 20 minutes, when you were like, it felt a bit, Ireland were doing everything right, but it felt a bit matter of time. We weren't coming out of our own third. They got a grip on the game after that, but for that first 25 minutes, I was thinking like, this is almost unfair. It's an unfair thing for us to be talking about, like getting a result or whatever it might be, because they're just not anywhere near the league of these players. But then they got it together. And look, I mean, for Ireland to have any chance against France, France have to contribute to that. They have to have a slightly off night. We have to do something that rattles them in a way that they don't adapt, or whatever it might be. That all happened, but that's happened with all of Ireland's good results over the time. So, while I don't think we should ever be blasé about losing at Lansdowne Road, I think we should always be at a point where we're not just accepting defeat at where things start. Given the way the game played out, given it was one real chance that came from a mistake, given the fact that we had a real chance that we all thought was a goal at the end to get a draw. I really can't see how you can be too down on this team, and certainly just picking out, well, we lost, no points. How could it be good if, you know?
Yeah. I felt very real in the stadium how awesome France were at any moment, yeah. And I had no problems, I have to say, whatsoever with Coleman and Doherty not getting ahead of the ball in any great way and not offering any kind of attacking threat. I was more than happy for Coleman in particular to stay at home and to be calling Ogbene back with great regularity. And Ogbene, to his credit, somehow managed to juggle, really giving Coleman a huge dig out, and also giving Hernandez plenty to think about at the other end of the pitch. You know, incredible athleticism to get up and down. It really was. And Malumbi's work rate was off the charts. Cullen had the mistake looms large in your mind, but he had a very solid game, I would say, without doing anything extraordinary.
How he wasn't booked in the first half. Do you remember this challenge? France broke down the right, and they were like, it was the most obvious yellow card challenge of all time. It was like, oh, we're screwed here. I'm just going to take him down. The ref was like, here, cop onto yourself now.
I thought our left hand side didn't offer enough, and Knight worked tirelessly. You couldn't stress how much work he did off the ball. And Doherty had one great run in the first half, people will remember. But I suppose there was a clear thought in the Coleman-Ogbene dynamic, as in, this is how we're setting up, and this is how it will both be good defensively and offer a threat. Whereas I felt with Doherty and Knight, defensively they were very in sync and working very hard. But I don't know what their plan of action was. Like, Knight doesn't have the athleticism to pin back Pavard.
Ogbene and Knight are two different players. Like,
but is Knight not more central? Like, is Knight? Yeah, do you know what I mean? As purpose, like, as in, is that not a tactical choice that we kind of only have one wing because we need more bodies in the midfield? So Ogbene is technically a forward, but he's playing on the right wing, whereas Malumbi, Knight, and Cullen are all kind of central.
I suppose a 5-4-1, as we were without possession against a 4-3-3, the two in midfield are enough there to handle Griezmann and Rabiot and Camavinga. To be fair, Evan Ferguson dropped in Camavinga a lot. I just felt there was an argument, if we were going to be as kind of agricultural as we were on the right hand side, and it worked to an extent, I felt like Doherty and Knight were a touch more in no man's land. And I could have imagined, for instance, instead of Knight, maybe a James McLean really pressing Pavard in the same way that Ogbene was pressing, because France were playing a very high line, and you saw when Almeida came on and he ran in behind, you were like, oh, Ferguson wasn't actually doing that so much, and he dropped deep, and Kenny said he dropped a bit too deip. But I mean, that's a minor quibble.
So it gives you the opportunity to be a 6 at times at the back, or play with wing backs at times, with sometimes Doherty and Coleman are filling.
But in the main, I agree with Richie and yourself. I think for the opposition that we were facing, which was France, I was really pleased that this team set up in a defensively solid way, that the shape was well drilled and it worked in the main, and that they didn't do anything too silly. Again, the Cullen mistake aside, but that wasn't a trend in the game, that was a one-off mistake. I thought they set up very pragmatically, and there was a bit more of a hard-nosed edge to them, which hasn't been there enough in the last maybe year, I would argue, personified by Malumbi. You know, that kind of ferocious, we're still going to have to work harder than the opponents to beat them. So I'd say, Rich, as a first step, if the rest of the campaign goes well, you'd look back and say that was a good, solid performance, perfectly good. I suppose the point is the challenges against Greece and certainly Gibraltar are that bit different. It's like, can we now break down sides and be a bit more adventurous and not give away silly goals? And that still, I think, remains to be seen. They are very different challenges to France, clearly.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, like, at times last night when he came on, I would have liked to have seen the ball get to Mikey Johnson a little bit more, because you could see with that little bit of a shimmy and move past the defender, he would have frightened the life out of them in those final 10 minutes if he had seen more of the ball. Getting it to him is a different matter, but that's certainly something that you can explore against Gibraltar, definitely. Perhaps against Greece as well, maybe more so at home than away. But there are options now, that if you do need to alter your plan or change the game or go on a slightly more attacking or possession-based route, and you do have players like Johnson who can come off the bench and give defenders a fright. Will Smallbone as well, probably unlucky not to have played some part last night too, has shown obviously that he's capable of unlocking defences and playing through the lines, and those are all good things. Yes, we're not at the same quality level man for man as France. We don't have a Camavinga, we don't have a Kylian Mbappe, But we're showing that what we do have, we can work a decent system around, and certainly, as I mentioned, build from what last night's performance was. But it will be literally, what is it? Another 4 or 5 months. It's going to be application.
Yeah.
Like, and there can be no, like the idea of mentally switching off, at least for a second, as draining as it is, just can't be something that enters their heads. And if you can keep your concentration, and if you can stick to a game plan as well as they did for the guts of last night, then they are standing in good stead.
Very quick smattering of text, and then we'll get into the news round. So, in no particular order, John in Dublin, is Kenny really showing us anything that we haven't seen before? A lot of confirmation bias going on, I think. I would say the team are playing more ball than we've seen in a long time, to be fair, John. Forget the result, finally enjoy watching this team play again, says Mick and Cork. So maybe that's a riposte to John's point about anything new. Emmett and Donegal, second place a live possibility? What are you guys smoking? Where's the basis for that? He wonders. Netherlands being a bit dodgy. We're hoping the inevitable infighting, but I think it's still odds against for sure.
Yeah, we still have to get we still have to get lucky to get a results plural against Holland, right? But I was saying to Arthur last night when we were watching the match and watching the game on Friday night in particular, Mbappe can have a night like last night where nothing happens for him, but he's still like that dangerous presence where he's the best player on the pitch and anything could happen at any time, and we have to completely be turned on at all times, and that's obviously going to affect us going forward and all. Someone like Memphis Depay, the Dutch Mbappe, is going to have nights like Friday 50% of the time where he may as well not be there. And that's the difference. That's why there's definitely a chance that Ireland could do something against Holland. If they play like they play like they did on Friday. I didn't see last night, obviously, but what was it, 2-0 against Gibraltar?
3-0 against 10 men.
Yeah, if they do what they did on Friday night, like, we could absolutely get something off them.
Colin, Limerick, Ireland defended well, and they were really up for last night, I agree, but they were very limited. Yeah, on the limited, I would say certainly very cautious. And I don't know if you're at the stadium or not, Con. I must watch it back on TV out of interest, but certainly being there, I mean, the looming threat of a French counter-attack, any time Ireland had a set piece or got numbers ahead of the ball, I couldn't exaggerate it. And your eyes were drawn to Mbappe, and there were times when France would win the ball back or they'd head a corner clear and it might fall to French feet. And it was just like this cluster bomb of French jerseys bombing forward and this sense of we're in big trouble. So you were saying very limited. I would say they were extremely cautious. Like I said, Coleman, Doherty never getting ahead of the ball, and I think that's understandable, and it felt appropriate at the stadium. Anyway, I'll continue your text. We didn't look like scoring apart from that one corner. Again, quick disagreement. The Ida run in behind, played it to McLean. That was a chance. There was an Alan Brown volley across the box at one stage. The corner, obviously, the best chance. Ireland could easily lose in Greece by 2 or 3 goals. They could. We need to be realistic with this team. They're lower championship level. To think we could finish ahead of the Dutch is not possible. We'll do very well to finish ahead of Greece. A very similar team lost to Luxembourg, one of the worst ever results. That's Con in Limerick. And then a final one for the time being, if I could. How about the possibility France played poorly? They were most certainly not at the races. Unusually poor in possession. Ireland did well, but France were off. I do agree France were pedestrian by their standards, and certainly watching Frank Leboeuf and others analyse the game, they are disgusted. They're like very critical of the French performance. I think Frank Leboeuf used the phrase where he said, I wouldn't say it was a disgraceful performance, it was disappointing. So,
like, isn't that just going to happen though? Like, Ireland contribute to that a little bit as well. Like, Ireland definitely frustrated them, and I think we can look at it sometimes probably too one-eyed, and then when you hear France think that they're making that they have some sort of detailed, nuanced opinion, they're just looking at France as well. You know what I mean? I think that Ireland absolutely contributed. On the point of a similar team against Luxembourg, I don't have the Luxembourg team ahead of me, but like, the team Kenny has built in such a short period of time, again, this doesn't have to be a referendum on Stephen Kenny in any way, shape or form, but like, I'm just looking at his first match here, right? The only player who played last night, who started last night, that played his first game against Bulgaria, do you remember when Shane Duffy got the late equaliser, was Matt Doherty. The only person who was involved in who came on or played last night or that night is Adam Ida, who started that night and came on last night. There's nobody else. That's an incredible turnaround in such a short period of time. And you look at the players who've developed in that time, like Josh Cullen, like Malumbi, like Ogbene, John Egan and Doherty both played that night, and nobody else. You look at Bazunu, for example, and there's more as well. They're all like international.
Nathan Collins.
Yeah, they've all got experience now. They're all internationals. They all know what this is about and will be better served for it each time, So I like the idea that we're not coming along and it's the same old, I don't really buy it, I have to say. That was one of our best performances that I can remember in a long time last night. Again, the summer is what matters.
Yeah.
But
because I think we
can't say there's no signs of anything, like as the texters are saying there.
No, and it's fair to say Ireland can muster up those rearguard actions against the better teams.
No, we do, yeah.
Traditionally.
Not unheard of, yeah.
I would say we kept possession better than we traditionally do. It's not to say we created a lot of chances, but at least at times there was an effort to keep the ball and take the sting out of the game.
Zuna was hardly busy though as well. When you say we didn't create chances, it was a game largely light on chances.
Yeah.
They had a couple, but not more than not much more certainly than ourselves.
That's true. Shots on goal. France 11, Ireland 11 was a surprising statistic. Wow. 2 on target Ireland, 4 on target France.
Yeah, 2 long distance saves from Bazunu that were comfortable enough. And the goal. Isn't that the only times that there was any real chance there?
Pretty much. Let's hear from the camp then, because I know that's where you're starting your Newsround, Richie. It is, as ever, brought to you with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. So where are you taking us?
Yeah, Captain Seamus Coleman, as we mentioned, says the Republic of Ireland must use last night's performance against France as the yardstick for the rest of the Euro 2024 campaign. Next up is a trip to Greece on June 16th, and Ireland's man of the match last night, Chidozie Ogbene, remains confident that they can qualify for Germany.
Overall I'm positive. I think we performed really well. I think we were unfortunate enough to get at least a point from today's performance, but we are disappointed. That's the expectation we have of ourselves. We get beat 1-0 by if not one of the best teams in the world, and we're disappointed. I think we had enough chances to get a draw tonight, but the application of the boys today was outstanding. I think we were very compact. We were difficult to break down, and we were beaten by a long-range spectacular. There's not much we can do about that. I mean, you could say, clear the ball, but these things happen. But I think overall we have to take the positives, and we just have to, strive for consistency, especially going towards June. We need to pick up 6 points if we want to push for this qualification stage.
I mean, he really was very good.
He's so likeable as a footballer. He's that kind of every time, and this is every time he's played or been involved with Ireland, he just lifts things a little bit, and he just has all those attributes of a really popular kind of folk hero style footballer. And I don't know if he's been getting enough chances, I have to say. I was very happy to see him start last night. It wasn't a guarantee by any means, but he seems to always deliver. And obviously, last night could be his defining performance for Ireland, absolutely. But I feel like it hasn't come out of nowhere. He's been very, very good.
Yeah. A few texts in on the anthem, actually. So Andrew on YouTube, national anthem was incredibly special last night, he says. The lady, that is Lisa Lamb, lady should be a permanent fixture for future matches. And another one on the anthem. Lads, following on from my successful slight tangent recommendation last week, and his question last week was, is Formula 1 a cod? I have another one for this week. Aaron Levine, banned or no band? It looked and sounded sensational last night. Goosebumps all round.
I usually want the band, but I have to say I thought last night was made, and Joe, you were there again, so this, how it came across on what was actually the live feed I was getting from the stadium from you guys, was the noise on at the end was the loudest I've heard Lansdowne Road in years for a football game.
Did you see that clip of Evan Ferguson afterwards?
Unbelievable.
No,
Rich. The clip of Ferguson that goes along, it basically tracks along the anthem line just afterwards. I think I don't know if it's unofficial footage. I'm sure somebody in the sideline had it, but it gets to Evan Ferguson and he's rubbing his hands and jumping up and down and saying, the expression is, this is quite something. This is something really, really special. And you could tell that it was. And the anthem thing is funny because they tried the same thing against Latvia, and obviously it's Latvia, it's a friendly, and there's 10,000 fewer in the stadium, and the occasion isn't as large, and it can come across a little bit provincial championship quarter-final when you just have somebody singing the anthem on its own with no accompaniment. It works for an atmosphere like last night, certainly. I'm still not sold on if it's going to be the exact same against Gibraltar. when they come to Dublin in June. It's going to be the same kind of atmosphere. So I don't know if you make a call ban, no ban yet, but it definitely worked last night for sure.
Yeah,
we have both.
Do the dropout like
need to be a cappella?
No, it doesn't need to be a cappella. You could get both.
Yeah. I don't know. There's definitely those.
You don't know Wales-England situation from last week though, or Italy-England, sorry, from last week, because that was a shambles, where they had singers on the sideline, the band that was playing it in the wrong tempo and all this kind of stuff. So they ruined both anthems.
Why can't Italy play an anthem in tempo?
Like their own, like, it's just bad. It's just so bad.
Yeah. Anonymous text in. The Collins header wasn't even in the top corner. Oh, that's a good save. Come on.
Stop it.
If we can't agree on that, we can't agree on
Do
it.
you not feel like that ball hit the head? I've seen balls from that position being headed in that direction. It was a goal.
Yeah.
It was a 9.5 times out of 10 goal, and it was an unbelievable save.
Yes. What on earth is Ogbene still doing playing for Rotherham? Surely last night a Premier League team will take a 10 to 15 million punt on him.
I don't know. There was a moment in commentary last night where it sounded like, it obviously wasn't meant this way, but it sounded like real shade was put on by Darren Maloney on the TV commentary, where he just went, Ogbene of Rotherham. So like in this, having just been through all these brilliant French players and all their different amazing clubs, but yeah, it is a strange thing that he's still there.
Yeah, I felt France were ultimately a bit pedestrian by their standards, and yet so good as well. There were times, especially after they scored the goal, where they just picked up the game and put it in their back pocket, and the ease with which they do it. And
yeah,
there's a speed of thought with that level of player that we just can't match.
It's a joy,
and
it's
the
a joy to watch.
touches,
Yeah,
it really is.
It's beautiful to watch. I mean, I was enjoying their performance in a weird way, even though I didn't think they ever opened up or injected the tempo into their passing that they could have.
Yeah.
And Mbappe, again, did very, very little. And yet he showed just enough at times that he is just on a different planet to everybody else on the pitch. And it's rare enough at that level where you go along to the Aviva Stadium and you see a player. The only other example I can think of is Wes.
Come on. I love Wes more than anyone. Come on.
I know. But it's rare you go along and you're like, even Ronaldo, who's of an age now and he was there recently enough, didn't stand out to this extent. There was one chop inside it at one point, and it wasn't just Coleman who, went. Every single defender in the defensive line, every single midfielder bought the chop. It was like Ireland were a Subbuteo team, and all of them just took a massive step that way and bought it. And you were just like, man, if you didn't have Coleman with another defender inside him and Ogbene tracking back and Malumbi dutifully hacking away, this guy would murder us.
I know, but you know
so
what?
Good.
The fact that he didn't, he's the best player in the world, and he did show all those signs, and he didn't murder us. It's a massive win for Ireland. And actually, I thought Seamus Coleman was absolutely brilliant, but also it was a really good selection actually, because we're all worried about that, and obviously Seamus has passed his best and so on, but he's also one of the smartest footballers we've had, and he's one of the best footballers, and so what he was lacking in physicality, he made up for in experience and his ability to manage the players around him to get the help that he needed. I thought he was brilliant last night.
Kenny Cunningham made the point with us last week. I would definitely play Coleman at right wing back, and a lot of people were unsure. In fairness to Stephen Kenny, got the call absolutely right, and Kenny was making the point this morning with the lads on AM, like there were one or two moments where Mbappe did get turned. In the main, Coleman didn't let him get turned, but did get turned, and Coleman had the nous to give himself 3 yards, not 5 yards, because that's too much, and Mbappe chops inside and then you're in all sorts of pain, and not too close to get completely burnt. Just judge the space, gave himself a few yards, Mbappe knocks it by him, starts making ground in Coleman, and then when the moment comes, Coleman slides to make the tackle and it's out for a corner, and that's nous and that's experience, and Kenny should be Stephen Kenny, not Kenny Cunningham, although they both should be commended because Kenny called for it as well.
Give Kenny the egg.
Both Kennys should be commended because they were, you have to say, against the best player in the world, give or take, they did such a good job there.
Yeah,
and there's a lot to be said for that. Richie, sorry, keep us going.
Yeah, Scotland plotting a mighty upset in Group A of Euro 2024 qualifying tonight. They are at home to Spain at Hampden Park. The Scots opened their campaign with a 3-0 win at home to Cyprus at the weekend, but Scott McTominay, Ryan Christie and Lyndon Dykes have all been promoted to the starting 11 for tonight's game. Elsewhere in that group, Norway remain without a win after 2 games. They were held to a 1-1 draw by Georgia in Batumi this evening. In Group D, Wales are unchanged for the visit of Latvia to Cardiff. They are looking to follow up that creditable draw away to Croatia at the weekend. Croatia themselves are in Bursa to play Turkey. Dorothy Wall says Ireland can use their second half display against Wales to build upon for this week's meeting with France. One of the Women's Six Nations favourites visit Musgrave Park on Saturday, a week after Ireland's humbling defeat in Cardiff. Senior coach John McKee says that some tough conversations have been had since Cardiff.
Oh, look, there was, some pretty blunt review meetings went on and really looking at, some of the technical areas of the game where we really felt we let ourselves down. Disappointing thing, from a coaching perspective is that we got beaten in some areas which we've done well before, and we got away from, our process and the way we do things, and went, to individual and couldn't counter the strength of the Welsh team. But, the sessions yesterday around review were really good, and training today has been really good this morning with our units, with a lot of physical work done, particularly for the forwards. So, we're really looking forward to the contest this week. It
was very disheartening, I have to say, on Saturday. I don't know what you thought of it, but there was a time in the first half in between, I think, the Welsh second and third try where Ireland were just on between the 22 and the 10 metre line for what felt like about a half an hour. It was probably about 10 minutes of real time where the ball was just in the same area of the pitch.
Yeah.
And we can't cross the halfway line.
No.
And say what you want about our setup and all that stuff, and obviously it has to get better, but they did a much better job against Wales last year. Not that much has changed in that amount of time, and it was very disheartening.
They were trapped really at that stage because the Welsh forwards obviously had the edge in Ireland in the set piece and in most collisions, although again I agree with your point, because last year Ireland made more dominant tackles than any other side in the championship, and it just looked like a non-contest in the physicality stakes on Saturday. But Ireland were trapped because they had no kicking option aside from Breen, so they couldn't kick their way out of trouble. They had to try and run their way out of trouble, and the attacking shape was just out of sync, and Wales smelled blood, and they just kept squeezing up, and it was like, in rugby terms, an absolute massacre at that stage. Second half better, 5 points apiece, but you wonder to what extent Welsh heads had taken their foot off the pedal. It was very worrying. I would say at this removed, there's a very good chance Ireland will take the wooden spoon. Italy are a good team.
And it's away, obviously.
Yeah, Italy are a very good team. This isn't parallels with the men's situation.
No, I think it's Scotland more so, really, because they've no chance at their home games.
And so I did the Scotland-England game for Virgin. We have the France game at the weekend, Ireland-France, and the 58-7 scoreline doesn't make great reading, but that's just because England are so far ahead of everybody. The sense from Jenny Murphy and Fiona Hayes alongside me in studio was there's a good shape to the Scotland attack. They defended actually all right again in the context of 58 points. So they've maybe taken a bit of a step forward on last year, and it's hard to feel we have at the moment. So it was very dispiriting. I think most people would have expected Wales to win, but just not in that fashion.
That's it. And not the best year for it as well, when the home games are unwinnable basically, and then you have to go away for your only chance of avoiding that wooden spoon. Yeah, it's tough. It's a very tough predicament for all concerned. So we'll see what they can muster up against France. Maybe there has to be an aspect of particularly bad day at the office about it. You would hope. Rich, do you want to give us the last story or two?
Yeah, the IRFU, strange one this actually. They've confirmed a change of head coach ahead of the penultimate leg of Olympic qualifying. Aidan McNulty announced on his LinkedIn earlier today that he was joining Munster as provincial talent coach. Some hours later, the IRFU confirmed the news with Alan Temple-Jones appointed head coach ahead of this weekend's tournament in Hong Kong. He spent the last 2 seasons with the South Sea Sharks, having been the IRFU's head of athletic performance for the Sevens programme for 4 years prior to that. And the Donegal County Board confirmed this evening that Aidan O'Rourke will remain in charge of the senior senior footballers for the duration of the championship. He was promoted to the role last week following the surprise resignation of Paddy Carr. Donegal's relegation to Division 2 is confirmed with a 21 points to 9 loss to Roscommon on Sunday. They're now just over 3 weeks away from an Ulster quarter-final with Down in Newry. O'Rourke will be assisted by Paddy Bradley, as he was indeed at the weekend. And the IOC president Thomas Bach says they'll continue to explore avenues to allow Russian and Belarusian athletes compete as neutrals at next year's Olympics. The Irish government is among a coalition stating their disapproval of athletes from either country competing in Paris, even as neutrals. While Bach says no final decision has been made, he's insisted that no athletes supporting the war in Ukraine should be allowed in international competition. Bach's statements today have been criticised by Vladimir Klitschko, among others, who said on Twitter the decision contaminates the Olympic spirit.
It sure does. Last text in or two, anonymous. It might not be popular to say it, lads, but I like the band. Bring back the band. And somebody else says, no music anthem only works when it's a bit of a surprise. It's ridiculous otherwise. Plus the music on the tannoy beforehand was also ridiculous, like a terrible bar you avoid on sun holidays. We did get Freed from Desire in there.
Yeah, you were loving that. You got Stewie to sing it.
Which he did.
Yeah. You're a terrible man.
But I've learned one thing in radio. When the inclination comes to sing, don't, because then it's preserved forever.
Yeah.
So I went to Stewie, come on Stewie, 1, 2, and then I just mouthed, nah. But Stewie sang, Dan McDonald looked away. Smart man.
You've learned that from bitter experience, Joe, haven't you?
Yeah.
You know, I have a 11-year-old clip in the system.
It's from Richie when I was at a Ryder. It is that, isn't it?
It's Lee West.
It's from when I was at a Ryder Cup, and I was obviously, what was the atmosphere like? And I was like, there's loads of great songs. And so to like Kings of Leon, you're on fire. Wait, I can't say sex on the radio.
Did you just?
I blanked it out. Sorry, I'm just like kids in the car or something. But like even kids in the car can handle that. Anyway. It would be Lee Westwood's on fire, but I sang it at the time. So there is audio of me singing,
and kind of like sort of like drifted as it went on as well. Didn't fully committed at the start and sort of just like faded.
I came in strong.
I'll have to find it now for this later on the show.
I came in strong with the woe part.
Yeah, that's fair.
But by the time I got to Westwood, I was limping. Like
one of my first occasions of meeting Kenny Cunningham in there actually has him singing "No Need to Argue" in tribute to Dolores O'Riordan. So there's definitely a singing montage to be made there, Mick. If you wanted to do the legwork on that one,
or not, let's do some journalism instead. You know what I mean? Let's get busy.
I don't know if you want to sing, Joe.
They really don't. Half-hearted.
Joe Molloy croons the hits, coming to you this Christmas. I do the ad and all.
That's a voiceover. I couldn't do that. I don't have that in my locker. Right, we got to go. A slight tangent is between 8 and 9. We have Vinnie Perth and Gavin Cooney who will go full in on Ireland analysis. We're going to talk hurling next. Richie, thank you very much. Cheers.
Nice one, lads. Cheers.
Michael, thank you.
Cheers.